I started my little animation studio, and we were doing music videos for a while, and we got a contract with Universal Music South Africa, where we did some music videos for them for a while as well. But once our YouTube channel started taking off, that was just when I realized that it's so much more fun just creating your own ideas. And even though some of them are like really cheesy and cliche, and because we make on our YouTube channel, we mainly make parody animations, so it's very just making fun of movie tropes and just very over the top type stuff. And I kind of just realized I enjoy that a lot more than working for an artist, where usually with the working on music videos and stuff, the artists have very small budgets, but then they expect the world. They've got a 3-week deadline, but they want pages of revisions. So with time, I kind of just learned it's a lot more fun just doing my own content than trying to work with other people. We still work with a lot of people. Like, we're currently now working on a music video for a band called Ice Nine Kills. It's a very big metal band from the US. So it's one of like the 1 in a million opportunity where they message us and we're like, yeah, sure. Well, their budget is great. The deadline is a bit short, but just working with them is kind of worth it.
Yeah.
So
I think with what you just said, you touched on a very important business point that I've come across very few people mention, is when you weigh up budget or cost allocation and timelines along with your capacity. So
yeah,
there was absolutely nothing wrong with what you said when you said working with other people, but they don't have great budget, but they expect too much. And I fully agree with that, because I have a day job myself and I freelance. So whenever I get a client that wants something, I first have to see, can I actually help this guy? And is it worth my time? Or is it going to be worth a late night or 2 late nights, maybe even a weekend, for myself to actually do this work? And if it's not worth my time or my health, for that matter, because that's actually one of the main reasons why I agree with you, is that I've experienced burnout because of taking on contracts I couldn't take on or shouldn't have taken on. And that's something that I would love to hear more about on your thoughts. But actually taking into consideration, is the value that you get out of taking on a project worth the resources that you have to allocate to that project? So what would you say to that statement of, yes, you have to decide, can I do this or do I want to do this?
It's definitely, in the beginning, I didn't really have that mindset or that as a mission statement for the work that we're doing. So we were just in that beginning phases of like, we'll take on any project, no matter the budget. Like, work is work and income is income, because we've got bills to pay and stuff like that. But the more our work started growing and there was more eyes on the stuff we're making and we've got more of a demand for our work, I started realizing a very big thing about the industry is you need to know your worth. You need to know how much your time is worth, and some project just isn't worth your time, because like you mentioned, there's late nights, and for a while, I think probably for like a year or two, we were working 13 hours a day, sometimes even 15 or 18 hours a day for like 7 days a week, no time off, nothing, just to get everything up and running. And at that time, we were trying to do 2 10-minute animations for our YouTube channel while still doing 2 other music videos for clients. So we were doing almost half an hour of animated content a month, and I'm the only animator for us. We're basically a 2-man team at this point, because I tend to write all of our stuff and I'll animate it and I'll do character design, and then I have someone that does all the editing and the background designs and some props and stuff like that. So we're just a 2-man team that just tried to make things work. And just to get back to the main topic of, you need to just know what projects are worth your time, because you can get caught in such a loophole of just accepting things, and then your work starts piling up, and it's not good for your mental health, because especially in a job where you have to just make things constantly, having creative burnout really isn't the best for your craft.
Yeah, no, I fully agree there. Burnout is a bitch, to put it politely. I burnt out last year quite a bit, and I've only now, after December, I took 2 weeks of leave from my day job, and that helped me to recover a bit. But no, in December, sorry, not in December. It helped me to recover for after December. But you mentioned something else as well. I'm trying to remember now. It was know your worth. That is important, and I have my views on that, and I fully agree with you. I just want to hear from you. What would you say is, like, say now you're starting out like you were. I would say from my side, knowing your worth, but you also sometimes just need to prove your worth a little bit. You don't have, it doesn't mean you have to go and promise everyone your best gig, but I would say if you were to be able to find a client who you feel is definitely worth your time, and you offer them something to prove your worth to them, because you know what you're worth, and then you give them that work at a reduced rate at the start while you're building up, and once you've got a name, then you charge your full rate. But with that, don't just go willy-nilly in doing that. Have a plan for how you want to prove your worth, for how long you are willing to go through the late nights and the early mornings, because you're trying to prove a point. And then once you've proven that point, you have to know how long you want to do that for yourself as well, because eventually you won't be able to keep up with that anymore.
Yeah, no, that's actually very well said. I think that's what I was kind of trying to explain earlier. Just in that beginning, when you're starting a studio, or you're just starting your career as an artist or whatever, you have to prove your worth. So that's when kind of you do those crazy 13 to 15 hour days, and you do that extra work and stuff because you've got something to prove. But once you've proved yourself, then people just start coming to you with more and more projects that you need to take on. I think then is when you start transitioning to, like you were saying, knowing your worth and knowing what client and what project is worth your time. Because you also don't want to be the douchebag that just thinks he's too good for every project that gets brought to them. But there's a big thing with projects that we turn down is people come to us and they're like, okay, cool, I want a 3-4 minute music video. I've got 4 weeks, or I've got 3 weeks. And it's like, clients sometimes need to remember as well, you need to give people notice. Like, especially studios as that's very small, and you're working, like, we've got 3 months in advance projects planned out. So if you come to us, I mean, even if people come a month in advance or something, we can move projects around. But if someone's coming now and they're like, we need you to start on this tomorrow, it just comes back to, you need to just prioritize your health and your mental health to not take that on, because sometimes you're not going to make a deadline, but you trick yourself into thinking you're going to do it. And then the closer you get to the deadline, it just starts weighing on you so much more, and that's never fun.
I've made that mistake a few times in the past. You agree to something and you can't really do that, but you still take it on because either you're desperate for money, but you don't want to make it obvious that you're desperate for money, or you really need a project because you need to work on something and you have capacity, but you're also not in a state where physically you cannot take on the project because either you are too tired, you're burnt out, maybe you just finished a big project and you sit with brain fog for a day or two because you've been so wrapped up for the last month and a half in crafting, getting that project done, that big project, that now you have a day or two of peace and you can recover. So your body will do just that. It will recover. And then you take on a project you shouldn't, but your brain is actually, or your body's actually saying to you, dude, I need rest.
Yeah, no, indeed. And one of my biggest things is I don't like turning projects down, not for the money or anything like that. I don't like turning down any opportunity. So if there's an opportunity to work on something, I'm always very keen, especially if the source material and the concept and everything is like, it gets you excited. So then turning things down are usually so hard, but in this last 2 years, I've gotten way better at just turning things down, because sometimes I'll just get too wrapped up in it and I'll agree to a project, and then, like you were saying, like, you just don't get it done. And then I end up just shooting myself in the foot. And even with our own content for our channel, I'll end up saying, okay, we're going to start doing 8-minute scripts. And then I still end up writing something that's like 12 minutes. And then where I can cut it, I don't cut it because I don't want to sacrifice my ideas that I've had. So it's a very catch-22 where I shoot myself in the foot, and then sometimes I still complain about it.
I've done that before as well. I think it's all a journey of growth, though, because I'm pretty certain that the conversation we're having now, we wouldn't have had 5 years ago when we were chatting for the first time.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
We'd have had I think it's safe to say we would have complained to each other about each other's clients, instead of talking to each other about how we manage expectations. Because I found in my adventures, for lack of better word, communication and expectation management go a lot further than just saying, yes, I'll get things done.
Yeah, no, indeed.
But then, so now, from the past few years of what you've been working on and stuff like that, what would you say has made a big influence on the type of work that you like doing and the type of work that you take on because you have targets that you need to meet by the end of the month at a minimum? So say, for example, you said you and your partner set the target of, we want to do 2 videos this month that we really enjoy.
Yeah.
And then we will do at least 1 video that doesn't matter if we don't enjoy it, but it will help us to cover our overheads. So what would you say has been the biggest influences that help you drive your decisions outside of what we've already discussed?
Well, like I mentioned previously, what I figured out was really my true passion was just creating our own content for YouTube, because at the point that we got a YouTube channel at now, our channel is paying us the exact same as our highest commissions at the moment. So we're always we're always torn between the decision of, are we gonna do content for ourselves, or are we gonna rather work in a project for someone else? Because we've one main client that, even since we spoke last time, I started doing content for him, and once a month I'll create animation for him for his YouTube channel, because he's currently at almost, I think, 3 million subscribers. He does crazy numbers. So every month we do a project for him, and then our second video of the month we try and figure out, is it going to be a video for us, or are we going to do something for a client? But through that, I've really, just through doing YouTube stuff, I've really come to the conclusion that you have to find the balance of between what you want to do and what people want to see. Like, you get those artists that are diehard, they don't compromise for anything, and they just want to make what they want to make, and that doesn't really work on something like YouTube, especially if you, like, your main goal is to transition into just doing your own content and stuff like that, where we've kind of come to this balance of, we'll pick a topic with what's been doing well for us is horror related content. So we just started doing horror parodies and kind of using this niche to kind of do still what we want to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can understand that. And in that, you also find you have your niche, and this is not going to lead into creative nuances, but you found your niche, you found what you enjoy making, which means your work quality gets better.
Yeah.
If you, I don't know, my sense of creativity is quite jaded because in the business world and the corporate world where I live, a lot of creative decision is made around a strategic goal. It's not around the creative success all the time. Like sometimes
Yeah.
a design needs to be a broken design because it needs to for a certain function on a website or in an animation. It's not supposed to be a pretty picture or a pretty animation. It's supposed to be completely functional. So
Yeah.
in that regard, I've learned quite a bit on removing my emotional attachment from my work. But now coming to you with, you have a niche, you have something you enjoy working on, you get clients that you want to work for. Like you mentioned earlier, you've got the metal band that you wanted to work for, and now you do get the chance to work for them. That's a big name. I mean, Ice Nine Kills is quite big. I know, I listen to them as well.
Yeah.
So now you've got 4 things that will help motivate you to want to do the work. And then that in turn, would you agree, says it helps you to make better decisions? It helps you to make better self-care decisions because you want to do the work, but you don't want to do it at the cost of your own mental health.
Yeah. No, I think definitely, kind of like you were just saying with something I've also learned over the last few years is just to not be so emotionally attached to your work, because then it puts so much strain on your mental health when you with every scene or every frame you try and like strive for perfection. Then you also just, you're putting unrealistic pressures on yourself, where I've kind of transitioned into just, I do the best I can within the deadline space. And if working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 4 weeks gets a certain quality, and that's what their budget allows, then that's what they're getting. Where in the past, they'll be quoted for, let's say, 120 hours, but I'll do 240 just to kind of make it as perfect as I want it. Where I've just realized you need to do the best you can in the time you've got without putting all that strain on yourself and your mental health. Because as an artist, I mean, you're never going to be 100% happy with anything you make, but
Yeah.
I always just strive to be like, hey, that's not too bad.
Yeah. There's a trick I picked up from comic books. I haven't drawn any of my own comic books. I tried one and it failed, but I do want to pick it up again because I quite enjoyed that process. That actually gives me something I wanted to ask you about as well. It's the creative process, but we'll come back to that. When you're doing work for yourself and others, depending on how much work it is, create work that's at 40 to 60% of your ability instead of 100% all the time. Because most of the time, people won't notice more than just that 40 to 60%. Only other creatives will notice the 60 to 100%.
No, I realized that the hard way when I'll spend a good 2 to 3 hours animating this very minuscule background prop that's just, whether it's just a fan that's turning or anything, and whether it was animated or not, none viewer or someone that doesn't work in animation would have noticed it. And then that's something I realized as well too. Try and sometimes, to save time, just don't overdo yourself, because like you said, you can't do 100% constantly all the time. That also just adds to your creative burnouts and everything. So
that's also,
you just need to get to a point where your standard is something you can deliver consistently and effortlessly,
I agree with that, and that's also where the creative process comes in. How would you say your creative process has improved to benefit you as the artist when doing work for yourself or clients, doesn't matter, towards your work itself, improving in quality, that you think, okay, the work I'm putting out now is good enough that I'm comfortable with it going out into the public space?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is being organized and planning. Like, I've really learned the value of that. I've never really storyboarded my work much, so that's always been very much of an issue in the beginning. And then I tried doing some rough storyboard sketches, but it was taking a lot of time. So I kind of opted for more of we do like the screenplay storyboard, basically, where everything, instead of being illustrated out, is just perfectly described word-wise, and then I usually run from that. So definitely planning things way more properly instead of just jumping into a project without knowing what you're going to do and just start doing things. That's definitely one of the biggest things I've learned process-wise.
Yeah, it also brings you to the point of trust the process.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a bit more boring that way, but it's so much less of like a mental stress of just knowing exactly, okay, we've got 10 backgrounds, we've got 10 characters, we've got 72 scenes. Like, just knowing all that already makes it so much easier. So just normally process-wise, what I'll do is, like I mentioned, I'll start by writing a screenplay or a script for a video, whether it's a music video or a sketch or whatever. If it's a music video, I'll go into the song in my animation software and make markers on basically every beat or every second beat, so that it's just I've got where my shots are gonna cut and everything, and then I just put those times into my script document and type away until I've got all my scenes that I'm gonna be needing. And then usually after the fourth or fifth draft, and I'm finally happy with it, we'll make an asset list of our characters and our backgrounds and props and everything we'll be needing like that. At which point we also, if we're working on our own stuff, we'll send the script to our voice artists, because we've got about 3 regular voice artists from the US that we commission on like a monthly basis to do all of our voice acting and stuff. So then while they usually work on the voices, I'll start character designs while my colleague Dylan starts on the background designs. And then we sometimes finish at the same time, but I usually finish a bit earlier. And then once backgrounds are done, I'll just jump straight into animation once we're happy with all the characters in the background, so the client finally approves them. And then I'll just animate and then rendering, which takes forever. But I've also learned investing in a computer whose purpose is rendering is a very good investment.
Yep.
Like, it was killing so much time out of my day to render scenes. Sometimes some scenes would render for 10 hours. And to render that on the computer I'm animating on, I can't use it while it's rendering because nothing wants to function.
Yep.
So I ended up just purchasing a gaming laptop for myself, and then it's my personal laptop, but we use it for rendering. And my colleague did the same. He bought himself a nice gaming laptop that's for gaming and stuff, but during work hours we use our laptops for rendering because it absolutely kills the rendering time so much.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. My personal computer at the moment is also my workstation, but also my render station. And in 2019, 2020, wait, COVID started in 2020. When I was in 2019, I worked for a company where they issued me with the latest MacBook at that time. They were like, yeah, it's the best. And I'm like, okay. No, I'm not a Mac person. They knew this, but I used Mac because it was their system. Yeah. I burnt out 2 MacBooks in 6 months using After Effects. Which was,
That's crazy. And Mac's supposed to be like optimized for the artist.
I disagree completely with that.
Yeah, no, I've never used a Mac in my life. I just know they've pride themselves on, oh, you can do your artsy things on this, and you can run your After Effects, and you can Blender and all that fun things.
Nope. If you want to sit with the 52,000 rand paperweight on your desk, then by all means use the latest MacBooks.
Yeah, that's why I've always just been a Windows fan, because you can fix things like you want to. You can replace parts. It's not just one company making everything for that one thing.
Yeah, but with that being said, the MacBook workstation towers, I know that they were nicknamed the cheese graters. Those are quite powerful, and they're decent. So the reason I burnt out the MacBook, this is a story I tell quite a few people, and they can't believe it, but the MacBooks are so thin and slimline that there's hardly any room for air ventilation.
Oh, so the cooling was the issue.
It's the cooling. It doesn't stay cold. My MacBook was running at 90 to 95 degrees Celsius while rendering. And the safety mechanisms, if I remember correctly, was 90 degrees, then the Mac should shut itself down.
Yeah.
But it didn't. So that's why the Mac burnt out twice.
No,
but this is that. It burnt out twice in 6 months.
I used to have that issue just back in the day when I just started animating. I had a very shitty HP laptop, and it had that same issue. Whenever I'd render, I'd had to put the laptop, kind of flip it over so it's resting on the screen with the keyboard and the components in this like air, because it would get so hot it would just shut down.
Yeah, those are the Windows laptops that I've seen these days, this year and last year. They have really good safety mechanisms that...
yeah. And like my laptop also has a super fan now for gaming, so if it runs hot, I can turn it on, and then it sounds like an aircon on like a car aircon on full blast, but then it instantly it becomes cold to the touch.
Yeah, I've got that same feature with my work laptop at the moment. But I've set the laptop to turbo performance once plugged in, disregarding the fan noise and disregarding there was another one. So it disregards noise and it disregards the fan throttling. So the laptop can make as much noise as it wants. I don't care. The fans can blast as fast as they need to. I don't care. I'll work through that. I can.
Yeah.
And then I'll just do my job. As long as the hardware stays as protected as it can be. So, yeah, no, when you're saying about the rendering machine, I completely agree with that. It's an investment. Which also brings me to another question, which I actually rarely get the chance to ask. But what are your thoughts on when it comes to hardware and software, and short-term goals and long-term goals, and then investing in certain hardware or software pieces of equipment or tools?
Well, hardware-wise, I think obviously the better your computer is, the quicker you're going to get things done. So I definitely believe in a solid state drive. I recently upgraded my laptop's hard drive to a solid state. It made things so much easier. So definitely, once you reach a point where you can start allocating a certain amount of money, even if you're just saving like $300 a month, just to at some point start upgrading components of your computer hardware-wise, is definitely a plus. And software-wise, I've just kind of learned to sometimes using the industry standard is a good thing, but also sometimes just getting a software that you can use effortlessly and that you just are proficient in is kind of, that's what I live by. So like I've tried to use Toon Boom in the past, and I've tried to use Adobe Animate and Flash and all that stuff, but I always just end up coming back to the software that I know and and love. And I feel like if I can still put out content that's on the same level and sometimes if not better than some people using the other software, then yeah.
I agree with that. I had an art director when I was working in the agency life. He said to me, the best equipment to create content with is the equipment you have right now. And at first I looked at him and then it sunk in what he meant. If you want to do photography and you've got a camera, even if it's an entry-level camera, the best camera that you can use is that camera that you have, because that is your only ticket that you have towards taking a step towards getting something else.
Yeah.
Even if it means your camera is only a 2 megapixel point and shoot, it's something.
Yeah, no, exactly. In terms of that as well, it's one of my pet peeves when people say they're being held back because they don't have this equipment or that equipment. Like you were saying, just you gotta kind of make do with the equipment you have. If your computer can't handle you doing certain things, plan your projects around doing scenes that your computer is capable of handling. Or if you can't do a certain thing, just plan it so that with the equipment you do have, you can kind of make do.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. To that, also, that I would say there's a counterbalance of you will reach a point where the equipment you have cannot serve you anymore.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
But you need to reach that point before you can start saying the equipment isn't strong enough anymore from this point forward, because the decisions, and that I always make the comparison of an intern, a junior, a mid, and a senior, because I've seen the level of mentality and the level of growth in other artists going through those phases. I still to this day have never had a junior, mid, or senior attached to my title, so I can't say which one I am or have been or will be. But I can say is that I've worked with interns, I've worked with juniors, I've worked with mids, and I've worked with seniors. And I always see the same pattern. The interns and the juniors will stare themselves blindly at the equipment the seniors are using. And the seniors will laugh at the comments they receive from the juniors or the interns saying that the work they're doing is only possible because of the equipment. But then you put the senior on the same spec system that the junior is using, and he still creates high quality work, and then the juniors can't understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's just about knowing your tools and knowing just your craft.
It's just know what you can do, what you're capable of, and I mean, if you can't do something, like you as an animator, for example, can't do a certain animation that I want, but you know someone that can do it and they have the capacity to do it and the resources, there's nothing preventing you from outsourcing that work to them, and you just add your markup to it because you're a middleman.
Yeah. That's definitely something I'd like to look into in the future for expanding the studio and stuff. It's just with our current content we're putting out, people are very attached to our animation style and the character style, the background style. So finding someone to kind of emulate that is very tough. And also, because last year we did our first commissions for our YouTube channel, where we got two freelance art animators to animate 2 of our scripts for us, and it was very expensive and it was very time consuming, where our deadlines for them was about 2 months or 3 months, and I think the one guy ended up taking like 6-7 months to complete the project. So that kind of just scared us away from either referring people to other people, because especially if our name is now attached to that, or we refer them and the client doesn't really have a good interaction or aren't happy with what they're receiving, that reflects very negatively on us.
Yeah.
And with the content, for example, with YouTube, all the topics that we cover is very time sensitive. Like if a movie comes out, you have a very brief or a popular game like with Fortnite. That was also one of the things that really made our channel pop off. But topics like that, you have a very short window to kind of jump on something. And when we were commissioning people to do content for us, with Cyberpunk, for example, the game that was so highly disappointing, one of the commission projects was about that. But then by the time the artist finally completed the project, the hype surrounding the subject has died out to such an extent where we'll never recoup the investment we put into creating or producing the content.
Yeah, what you just said now also raises a good point. That comes to trust and brand reputation. If you're going to refer someone, or if you're going to have someone referred to you, and your name goes into that flow, you need to make decisions that will protect your brand and that will protect your reputation. If you end up, like you said, having a guy that his deadline's 2 months or 3 months, and they promise they can deliver, but they take 6 to 7 months. If I were you in that position, I wouldn't pay the guy.
Yeah.
I would tell them at the end of the 3 months, how far are you? I'm going to pay you for how far you are, but your contract is over. Because this enters the, I would say, the sensitive but also the harsh side of business.
That's definitely still a struggle for me, like just being kind of harsh, but like bold, just kind of saying what you mean sometimes. Where sometimes you'll commission something, whether it's voice work or character designs or something, and an artist will come back with their delivery, and then it's just so hard to tell people what you've made is clearly not up to standard. So then I'd rather try and debate to myself, oh no, this can work if we do this, or this can work if we do that, instead of just telling them flat, like, you aren't living up to your part of this agreement. Do better.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to do, but something I've learned again on the hard way is when it comes to the business side of things, emotions only go so far. But contractual agreements and standard of work, and also when you give your word saying I will deliver on this, those go a lot. Those outweigh how you personally feel about the work. You can work with the greatest person, or the people you have can be the greatest people to have a drink with or have a cup of coffee with. But the moment you enter the realm of business and the realm of working together, I've learned that I have to set aside my feelings towards someone or towards the work. So, say for example, you and I work together, and you have an issue with my quality of work. I would say I kind of expect you to tell me when the quality of work is not up to your standard. Because if you can openly and honestly tell me in this world that your work isn't living to what I need it to be, your work isn't living up to the standards I need it to be for my brand, that is it's a very difficult thing to do, but you have to be able to do it. And that took me a long time to learn that lesson as well. Because at a company I used to work for a while back, and one of the ethos that they believed in is be honest and be direct, and leave your ego outside the room. Because only once you can be honest and direct with each other in the environment that you're working in, and have no ego while at it, only then can you deliver the best possible work for that scenario. Because the work you produce for different purposes will have a different scenario each time, and the work quality will fluctuate depending on what it needs to achieve. So you need to be able to say to someone, listen, your work is not up to standard.
Yeah. And then also I feel like an important part of saying that is also being able to pinpoint kind of what isn't, like what aspect of a design, for example, isn't living up to the quality. Instead of just being like, that's bad, I don't like it, be like, here's some bullet points on what I don't like, or points I feel like could be improved on.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, a big part of it's also ego. Like when working with other artists, everyone always just believes what they're doing is the best, and no one can tell them shit.
I've worked with people like that before. Every single one of those people I've worked with that are like that, I refuse. I just made a mental note, like I will never work with them again. Maybe they've changed. I wouldn't know. But there's also, I will take what you said a step further. It's like on top of saying to someone what exactly you don't like about the work, also I would add advice and references of how I would like them to improve the work. And if they still, after that, don't improve, then, well, there's the door and I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
But if they do improve, then yes, let's work together.
Yeah, no, and just adding to what you're saying is references is also one of those things I've really learned over the years is very important. When a client is trying to explain their vision, I always ask them to include just references of anything, whether it's a music video or you just Googling some images. Just having like an idea board or just references to look at is always so helpful to just kind of try and understand where clients are normally coming from.
Yeah. I'm just realizing now, this interview we're having, it touches on so many sensitive business subjects in our industry and our field of experience that not a lot of artists actually address these things or will say things that as bluntly as we have said it, because we have been very blunt in the way we've been speaking about the topics we've been speaking. A lot of the people I've worked with before, they'll try and soften what they say, but we're just going at it, and I love it. I love when things can be blunt and straight to the point.
Yeah, I normally just try to speak my mind and then feel bad about it afterwards.
Yeah, feeling bad about it afterwards, I can relate to that. But this reminds me about something I learned very early on. It is that the only way that a artist can grow, and I'd love for you to weigh in here, is by acknowledging that there are areas that need to be improved, addressing those areas, and being honest enough with yourself to know that if something is a problem, you accept it and you work through it and you resolve it, instead of denying it and like that meme that was floating around for the illustrators, it's my style.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, something has to give.
Yeah, no, I would say that's something I was definitely guilty of as well, way back when I started. But this is more when I was just starting animation in high school, where someone will critique something, I'll be like, no, it's just my style of doing things. And although now there's certain things that is stylistically a choice that might affect something visually a bit negative, where it is just stylistically or for the type of animation I'm doing, it's just this is what works and that just kind of has to be it.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree with, to grow as an artist, you need to know what your shortcomings are, and then you kind of need to just work at that and start practice. Also, practice is the biggest thing that I just keep being reminded of how important practice is, which is why for my own personal Instagram, for example, I do those rapper loops and things every now and again, just where I can spend, let's say, 4 weeks, an hour every day after work, just working on this very small project that just pushes myself as an artist and like what I feel like I can do, kind of just to both to practice what I'm doing and to also just kind of show to people like, hey, this is what I can make if I had the time.
No, I agree with that. With
Good.
it comes to the point where if you have the time and you put it in and you can create something that's a nice showpiece, that work that you did for yourself is an investment in yourself because it attracts new work, it attracts new clients.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
And it also just gives you that opportunity to practice. Because
it's like
one of my biggest shortcomings when I just started is I was terrible at drawing things without reference. Like if someone's like, draw me a chair, didn't know where to start. Where over the years, just by consciously, I'm not even aware of that I'm practicing, but just by with every project drawing, like helping with backgrounds or doing some props, or I'd be in the middle of a scene, I'm like, oh shit, I need like a kettle or a toaster quickly, and then just drawing one. Like that type of practice just over the years have really made that not as much of an insecurity as it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
So just basically what you said is just identify your shortcomings and then just work on them. Because you, no matter how good you think you are, there's always something that someone's going to be able to nitpick.
Yeah.
And that
true.
also, I guess, just comes back to your mental health. It's like making something and releasing it when you like happy with it, but also knowing people, like anyone can tear anything apart. You know, like you can think you're making the most perfect piece of anything, and so, there's always going to be someone with something negative to say.
Yeah.
So creating things that you are like as an artist happy with, both professionally and just on a personal level, that you feel is making you grow as an artist or making you grow as a person, is just yeah, that's a good way to do it.
With that, there's also, well, like with almost everything in our line of work, there's a balance to it, but also play to your strengths. Yes, you have areas of weaknesses, but playing to your strengths will also help you a lot in the long run. Knowing what you're good at and knowing how to handle things that you are good at will also set you up for things that you would love to undertake. So let's say, for example, cell shading. If you're brilliant at that, like with your work, you know that you can do a cell shaded animation in X amount of time. But you also know that you struggle to do a fully 3D rendered animation. So then that's then where it comes to style and putting your best foot forward comes in, where you will then put your cell shaded animations forward as your theme, because you know that's what you do and that's what you're good at. And it would be kind of silly to go and put a 3D animated scene or 3D animated short forward as your preferred style, because it's not what you're good at and it's not necessarily what you want to do. Yes, there are artists that love doing that and they're good at it, but it might not be what you want to do as for your niche. So there's also the counter to address your weaknesses but play to your strengths.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think it also links up to something I've also learned, is just to not be too overly ambitious. Like, keep all your ideas. Obviously, when you're in the creative realm, you have to think outside the box and you have to think big. But you have to kind of think big in a realistic scale.
Yeah.
Where you might think it's great to do a certain project because it's going to be so good and it's going to be so big and you can get this and this exposure from it and stuff. But sometimes thinking whether it's possible, can you do it in this amount of time? Like, is what they're looking for something you can provide? Where someone might, where you do more of like a Family Guy 2D comic style animation, but now someone wants something that's more manga anime type related, and you're like, oh no, like I'll just figure this out while I do it. Rather turn it down.
Yeah, definitely.
Then take it on, and then 3 days in, you're sitting there, you haven't started, you don't know where to start.
No, I know that one too well. I've made a similar mistake before. Now, just to end off now, Dewald, it's been fun. It's been awesome to catch up again, and it's been great to chat and to realize that we've actually been reflecting about both our experiences, and that's been great. It's like I didn't realize how much I'd grown myself while listening to you and listening to your growth and how much I could relate to. But on a more important note is if we want to find you online and we want to contact you about your capacity, or we want to check out more of your work or just get in touch, where can we find you and how can we contact you?
Can go to EIEproductions.net. That's if you want to contact us about business things. But if you just want to look at our work, you can search E.I.E Animations on Instagram or YouTube, or can check out my personal work at Animatable. So yeah, that's about that.
Nice. Thanks for that. And then we'll catch up again, maybe not 5 years, but maybe sooner.
Yeah, that sounds great. It was
Awesome.
great chatting with you.
Thanks, dude.